Good evening and happy Norooz, everyone. My name is Piruz Shor, and I have the honor to introduce our distinguished speaker tonight, Professor Dick Davis, which I'm pretty sure needs no introduction at all. Dr. Davis is an emeritus professor of Persian at Ohio State University. He has written extensively scholarly works on both English and Persian literature, as well as 9 volumes of his own poetry. Dr. Davis has published numerous book-length translations from Persian, including 6 volumes of medieval Persian poetry with Penguin classics. The Times Literary Supplement has referred to him as the finest translator of Persian literature into English. I believe Dr. Davis has done more than anyone else to familiarize the Western audiences to the richness of Persian poetry in the past 35 years. As such, we are very lucky to have him here in Columbus, and he knows he has a special place in our hearts. I give you Dr. Davis.
Thank you very much, Piruz, for that very flattering and nice introduction. I wish everybody a happy Norooz. In whichever culture it is celebrated, the new year is seen as a time of renewal, not only of the external world of nature, but also of the internal spirit of the individual. In some cultures, this sense of the revival of life has become attenuated and has more or less lost touch with its mythological origins and its sense of ethical transition from darkness to light, from evil to good, and from the apparent death of winter to the re-emergence of life in the spring. In English-speaking cultures, for example, the moment's ethical dimension is mainly encapsulated in New Year's resolutions, and we all know how long they last. But in Iran and in Persian-speaking communities generally, the notion of renewal has not yet lost touch with its primeval mythological origins. And the symbolic importance of this moment of transition from winter to spring still permeates the culture in extensive and intrusive ways. We can see this in the elaborate preparations for the festival, spring cleaning the house, the cooking of specific foods appropriate to the season, the buying of new clothes, in the half-seen table's lovingly elaborate symbolic representation of the hopes invested in the moment of transition, as well as in customs like Chahar-Shanbe Suri, when jumping over the fire symbolizes the purging of sickness and the acquisition of health and new life. Also in the ritual visits between family members and in the celebration of Sizde Vedar, when the community goes en masse into the countryside to welcome the spring and the renewal of life that it has brought. As we know, the mythical origins of Norooz are buried deep in prehistoric time. And I'd like to spend a moment looking at a couple of stories in Ferdowsi's Shahnameh that show us the power that the concept of Norooz has come to exercise over the mythological thinking of ancient Iran. In the story of Bijan and Manijeh, for example, Jamshid's world-revealing cup only functions effectively at Norooz. That is, the world can only be seen as it truly is in its primal, uncontaminated state, which Norooz is said to restore at that time. And it is because of this moment that Bijan can be located and rescued from the pit into which evil, the symbolic person of Afrasiab, has thrust him. Bijan's emergence out of the darkness of the earth, that is, in mythological terms, of good from evil and of spring from winter, is but one of many mythological aspects of the coming of the revival of vegetation and the renewal of life generally, which Norooz represents. It is not only that it is at Norooz that Khosrow looks in the world-revealing cup and perceives where Bijan has been imprisoned. This is also the moment that Bijan and Manijeh meet at a Central Asian equivalent of a Sizde Bedar picnic, as the Shahnameh explicitly spells out. So that two events that happen linearly, separately in historical time, First, Bijan's imprisonment in the pit, and then Kay Khosrow seeing him in the world-revealing cup, which leads to his rescue by Rostam. In mythological time, these two happen simultaneously, at the same seasonally pivotal moment. Another story that involves a Persian hero in Turan, that is, in the poem's symbolic terms, goodness as it is encompassed by the power of evil, is that of Siavash. Siavash's resurrection from darkness is not as literal as Bijan's, and in fact he is put to death. The new life of Norooz is represented by the tree which springs from his blood, and which becomes a focal point of worship that celebrates the moment when the earth turns once again from darkness to light. And his resurrection is also brought about in a more human way, in the birth of his son, Kay Khosrow, who is the mythological king who most clearly brings the blessings of good government and prosperity to Iran. That is, the values of the light that Norooz ushers in. And as if confirming the theme of resurrection, Siavash, the father, must die before his son can be born, so that the son is, in a sense, the father reborn from death, as the new vegetation of spring is reborn from the death of winter. And we can note, incidentally, that these two resurrections of life at springtime from the darkness of the winter earth are parallel to the Christian Easter story, which, like Norooz, coincides, though not as exactly as Norooz does, with the spring equinox. Bijan, Siavash, and Jesus go into darkness and are resurrected from it. Bijan and Jesus literally, that is, they emerge from the earth according to the stories, and Siavash symbolically, as the tree that grows from his blood and in the birth of his son, Kay Khosrow, who will purify and renew the world. And with Kay Khosrow's purification and renewal of the world, I would like to take this opportunity to wish everyone a happy, healthy, and prosperous Norooz and year to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.